the order of these events here, but at some point, a construction business that Ben had owned began to fail, and he had to close his doors. Then Ben's marriage ended up in divorce. Ben then began to face some legal troubles as he owed lots of money in taxes related to his failed business. At this point in time, Ben's parents, Shelby and Patty, offered for Ben to come live with them in Collierville, Tennessee, which is just right outside of Memphis, Tennessee. Ben agreed and moved back in with his parents. Sadly, in the year 2008, Ben's younger brother Paul passed away at the age of 22 due to an overdose. Ben had been the one who had found Paul's remains, and due to this, he took Paul's death very, very hard. For 2 years after Paul's death, Ben really struggled to get back on his feet. And just as things kind of were starting to slowly look up for Ben, he was starting to feel a bit more optimistic about life. His parents offered for him to move into their vacation home, which was located at Santa Rosa Beach in Florida. Now, Santa Rosa is an hour and a half east of Pensacola, Florida. After Ben moved into the Santa Rosa home, he began to practice scuba diving again. Ben had been scuba diving since he was 15 years old, and he preferred to dive in fresh water, even though he lived right near the beach. Ben would often drive up to Vortex Spring to dive, since they had fresh diving water there. Or freshwater diving. I think I said that really weird. They had freshwater diving there. So Vortex Spring is about an hour north of Santa Rosa Beach, where Ben was, like I said, living at the time. He was really enjoying his stay there, and that change of scenery really did help his mood improve. Now, the thing about Vortex Spring was it had a cave underwater, and so a lot of people came to dive at Vortex Spring in order to explore this cave. Now, in order to go into the cave, there was a gate underwater that you needed to unlock with a key. So the thing with the spring and the cave is you had to have a certain diving certification in order to go exploring in the cave. Ben at the time did not have the correct certificate to do any diving in the cave. However, he was able to still go diving at Vortex Spring. He just technically wasn't allowed past that gate. of his air tanks were found in a very odd place. Two of Ben's air tanks were found near the entrance of the cave, which was odd as divers typically placed extra air tanks if needed along their exit routes out of the cave, not at the entrance of the cave. The entrance of the cave is basically like you can come right back up to the top of the spring there, so it would be really odd to place extra air tanks there. When the tanks were tested, they were shown to contain normal air instead of the specialized gas air that is required to dive at such depths, and Ben definitely knew all of this, so it was just really odd that they contained regular air. Another diver who was very experienced and slightly smaller than Ben went down into the cave and tried to find Ben's remains by exploring all of the nooks and crannies. However, he was unable to find anything at all. The diver told the police that he did not think Ben would have been able to fit back any further into the cave than what he explored, since Ben was larger than him. This man literally went as far as he could, and then he knew that Ben definitely could not have squeezed through some of those, nooks and crannies there. This diver also noted that there were not any marks from any divers in this area, and that Ben was definitely not in the cave. He was not further down in the cave, and he was definitely not in there at all. The cave was searched for over a month straight, and still no remains of Ben were found. Some divers who were searching for Ben began to question if Ben was even in the spring at all, or if his remains had been moved, if he maybe did not pass away in the water, or if he had simply disappeared. The police brought the cadaver dogs back in and had them search the surrounding wooded area, but there were no hits at all at this point in time. This is when others began to believe that Ben had possibly run away since he was facing so much legal trouble. But if you guys remember, he wrote that note to his parents, thanking them and telling them he was going to take care of them when he got older, and he was working on getting his dive training certification, and that just doesn't seem to me like someone who's trying to run away or anything. Eduardo, who opened the gate for Ben, knew he wasn't certain shower. And then Lowell said